Okay, welcome Floyd Billingy. Good seeing you again. It's been quite a while.
Hello, yeah, it's good to see you again as well. I try not to think about how long it's been. It starts to make me starts to make me feel old, but yes, good to see you again.
So I thought I'd start by showing you some of your first year work when you were here.
Wow.
No,
Okay.
I'm
Yes.
joking. I'm joking.
Cool. So my name's Floyd. I am a real-time CG supervisor at Axis currently. I'm also a lead environment artist. So I kind of do two things when we have the projects or when we don't have the projects. So as a real-time CG supervisor, I just kind of supervise large real-time projects and make sure that we hit the quality bar and get everything working and everyone has everything they need and make sure everyone's communicating. And then when those projects don't exist, I'm a lead environment artist for mostly pre-rendered projects. So that's just leading the environments and making sure that those hit the quality bar that we like to hit. And yeah, just making sure that they work and look as good as they possibly can.
So what have you been up to since you graduated? What was that early journey like for you?
So my early journey was, I guess I wouldn't say it was bumpy, but it taught me a lot. I think about the industry and what I wanted to do in the industry. I got a job pretty quickly at a very large studio, so I got a job up at Rockstar quite early on, and it was doing kind of what I wanted to do, but also slightly to the left of that. So instead of creating environments and working on assets, it was more to do with optimization and bug fixing, kind of those sorts of things, and getting those through and helping the environment team by taking that load off of them. And as enjoyable as it was to work in such a large studio and move to somewhere completely different, it wasn't exactly what I wanted to do. And I think that was, yeah, just apparent in myself and the way that I was at work and in my work. So I think I moved quite quickly on from there to Rare, where I became an environment artist and did pretty much exactly what it is that I wanted to do and kind of found my place in, I say again, what I wanted to do in the industry, which would be an environment artist and create awesome art for people to play and experience. And to also be a part of the team that pushed the creative vision and gave ideas and felt like I was giving something to that, which is what I found at Rare. It's a really good place to work. And the team that I was with there was great as well. Ended up working with, I think, 3 guys that were in the course as well. So it was like a little family. It was me, Dave and Gareth, and Alex Jajomin joined us as well. I still see and talk to all of them very, very often. So we had like a little team at Rare, which was awesome. And we worked on the last Connect Sports game that Microsoft had asked them to do. And for us, it was good because it was the most kind of visually cool one, for want of a better phrase. They went in a slightly more realistic but still very stylized direction. So it wasn't the same as the ones previously, which was like flat materials and just large shapes. We kind of had room to play with things and push things creatively. So that was great. And I think from there going forwards, I just kind of saw where I wanted to go to mobile game studio in Malta, I think, called Exient. So we worked on Angry Birds Go, which was kind of they did the 3D versions of Angry Birds game. And I think that's one thing that the games industry offers pretty much everyone that works in it, is that there's studios all over the world. And if you love what you do, you can move wherever you want and work on almost whatever you want. As long as you're good enough, there's no reason why not. So that was a great experience. I moved out there with my partner and we had a great time just living in the sun and working on games. But I think eventually I kind of had the yearning to work on a AAA title and to really like push the visuals and the fidelity and all of those different things and have more than like 100 polygons in one asset. So I managed to get a job at Splash Damage, which is where I would say I learned the most and matured the most as an artist. I worked with an amazing team there. Some of the people there when I joined were just like, wow, I can't believe I'm working with these guys. So it was like the one place where I matured the most as an artist, I would say. I learned a lot there. I learned a lot from art direction, about art direction. I learned a lot from the team just about how to make the best assets, how to look at these things as individual elements and the scene as a whole, and really turn them into something quite special. And then after, I think I was at Splash Damage for maybe 3.5 years, I became a senior environment artist there as well. me and my partner had a kid, and we decided to try and look back to Scotland and see what opportunities were available. And luckily for us, Axis existed. So yes, we made the move up to there, where I eventually became a lead environment artist and the CG supervisor, and that's up to where we are today, I guess. Cool.
That's been quite a journey then.
It has indeed, yeah. I've bounced around a fair amount, but I quite like it. I think in the games industry, you can get sat on one game for like maybe 3 or 4 years at a time. So sometimes it's nice to move around, because you'll do like 3 years on a game here and then another 3 years on another game there. So I personally have found that it's been quite refreshing to move from studio to studio. I've kept friends from every single one of the studios that I've worked at, that I talk to and play games with on a Wednesday and Friday all the time. Studios don't mind it. They have people coming in from all over the place all the time. So it's good for you, I think, as well, to progress by bouncing around. But that's just how I found it personally.
Yeah, we've got a couple of really good ArtStation competition pieces. So which one should we look at?
So we could go for the one I won if you want.
this one here, yeah.
No, that one, yeah, that one, the Lost Temple.
Yeah. And so this you did on top of working full time, is that correct?
Yes. So this one was whilst I was at Splash Damage. Before I had a child, I had all the free time in the universe, and it was great as well, because so we could work from concepts for this one. I think most of the ArtStation challenges, they have a concept phase at the start, and then you can kind of pick your concepts and then work on from that. So I had some guidance from some of the concept artists at Splash Damage who are like insane. And they were just giving me some pointers about things that I could change, or things that would help with the composition, and that really helped the way that I viewed the concept that I used, and added to it and evolved it to create this. So yeah, I was working full time at Splash while I did this, but I just thought, there's so many things I can be doing in my spare time. I don't know. I just kind of always have a need in my spare time to want to do 3D. If I'm not doing something related to it, I'm sat there thinking about it, looking at the textures on the walls in my house, thinking, oh, how would I replicate that? Which can be a pain at times. But yeah, it means that I do personal projects, which is nice.
Was that with Ben Cottage was one of the guys there, wasn't that, Splash?
Yes, yeah. Ben was there the whole time I was there. Yeah, he's only recently just left now. I play games with him every Wednesday and Friday as well. He's one of my close friends.
So these are the assets that predominantly are used throughout. So this is the big piece at the back.
Yes. So these are the only assets in it, and when you look at it like this, it's kind of like, whoa, there's not much in there. But I guess that's the point of trying to get something out at as high a quality as you can in a small period of time, especially for something like a competition, just trying to condense the scene down into its main components and get those right. And then if you can and have more time after that, add to it, sure. But yeah, these are the only components of the scene.
Should we have a look at one of these lovely, I love this one here. Should we start with this one, Magic Gathering?
Yeah, cool. So yeah, this was a big one. This was my first as a lead. So I co-led this with another guy, Stevie Gill, who just kind of helped me ease into leading at Axis by helping him out on this project. But this is an awesome one for Magic the Gathering. It's kind of the whole thing's set on a dinner table, but the world seems much larger because you're from the perspective of these little gingerbread men. And it's kind of in this magical world. I think Magic the Gathering released a set of cards that were fairy tale inspired, which is why they went in this direction. But it tells this story of a gingerbread man who loses his partner, and in the end, she ends up saving him. So it was kind of a twist on the typical story, but it's an awesome one if anyone wants to go and watch it. But yeah, this was great fun. I made a lot of assets in this as well as helped lead it. And we also used there were a good few, like some things like the fruits and stuff were purchased, and then we added a level of finesse on top of those. But yeah, this was a really awesome one. Just trying to get that level of detail down to something that was normally really small, and trying to add all of those little elements that would help sell the scene and make it feel like it was large. Was a really interesting task.
What's your approach? You leading a team of, and you're sort of like refining a lot of if you're not happy with the quality of something. And
yeah, so it's mostly as a lead on this project anyway and I suppose in most projects in general, it's mostly about just taking the director's vision and then funneling that towards your team and making sure that everyone is as focused on the right tasks that need to be focused on, setting the scenes, helping layout, work out what the scene looks like so that they can put cameras in it, giving feedback to artists, all of those different things. And then another great thing, I think, and you don't get to do this everywhere, but it's something that's really awesome that you can do at Axis, is as a lead, you get the time to pick something to make as well yourself. So most of the time, the leads will just pick like the most awesome thing and then slowly work on that throughout the project. But for this one, I worked on just the general surrounding environment. So all of the walls, the fireplace you can see behind you, and then positioning and stuff and getting things into scene and making sure they renders correctly.
No, very nice. And then there was this Sackboy as well.
Yes. So this was a massive project. It was a huge undertaking. This was my first as a CG supervisor. So I kind of was looking at this project from a perspective slightly, it was one step back from an environment lead. So you can see it is in a way helping to lead the leads and just make sure that they have everything that they need to. But one thing that I did bring to this was that we don't have at Axis that many really versed in real-time environment artists. So I helped to push that as well. But we had Stevie Gill, who was my co-lead on the last project, lead the environments for this, and I think they turned out great. But yeah, in general, as a CG supervisor, you're kind of just making sure everyone has what they need, the wheels are turning, and the visuals, the bar gets hit for the whole project for the project as a whole, rather than just the environments.
What was it rendered in then, this one?
So this was in real time in Unreal at I think on, was it 30 on PlayStation, on PS4, and then 60 on PS5.
I see.
Yeah, this was great. It was awesome getting Sumo's work and just like playing with it. We got to make all of Loom, which was the town that you can see there, as it was like completely separate to the game. So we got to make all of that and then provide the animations for their in-game cinematics, as well as so this was the initial opener. And then these are kind of the in-game cutscenes that help drive the story forwards. So we created all of the animations for those, the main ones that help drive the story forward, and did a little bit of like set dressing here and there.
Cool. You've done so much diverse stuff.
Yeah, it's been good fun. It's been good fun. Yeah, that's one thing that you get to do a lot at Axis. If I'm going to promote the studio in any way through this, is if you want to work on like a massive range of different things with fairly fast turnovers. I think our projects are like maybe 4 or 5 months. So you can, in a year, you'll be on like four or five, maybe 3 projects, depending on how big they are, and they're in different styles every time.
So great, and you're mainly focusing on real time, is that correct? In Axis?
Yeah, so I was hired initially to just help beef up the real time team and push Axis's real time vision. They've got an awesome real time team, lots of cool effects artists and stuff. But I was hired initially to do that, and then whilst we didn't have real time projects, I would help lead pre-rendered stuff, which was great for me because it gave me a real understanding of what it takes to make pre-rendered visuals and trailers.
And do you think one day the process will be, right, we've made that in engine and then you hand it over to the studio, or do you think it's always going to be like recorded at the end, then they play the MP4?
It depends, I suppose, on what it is that is needed coming out. I think real-time and pre-rendered are slowly merging together. Anyway, like the Sackboy one was played in real time in the game as you play it, right?
Yeah.
But I think if you're going to do stuff like trailers and so on, there's rendering it out's always, or at least for the minute, going to be the best way to do it.
Yeah. And what do you reckon the future is for that sort of like process? Because we're at the cusp of a big change, aren't we? Especially with Unreal 5 coming online now. For
sure. So I think studios are really looking into how they can utilize real time in the pre-rendered pipeline. So for the moment, it's mostly things. I guess there are a lot of experiments going on at lots of different studios, but for the meantime, it's mostly things like helping iteration in layout with layout and lighting and cameras. So doing things like virtual cameras, which are awesome. You put on a VR headset and you put your iPhone onto a fake camera rig, right? And you're in the scene. And if you're with a director, or you've got the director sat on his computer at home somewhere, you can both walk through the scene, set the cameras up without the need to render out a video, get it over to them, get them to take notes on it. They can say, no, shift this camera up, and they're there as well. They could have their VR headset on at the same time. And then you've got this like crazy, iterative, really creative world, collaborative world, where you're both working on the shot in the same place at the same time. So those sorts of things are all massive at the moment, and they're really helping speed the initial process up. But I think for the moment, whilst, especially for things like really high-end pre-rendered trailers, while things like mesh complexity, which Unreal 5 has like changed the game in so far already, right? Mesh complexity, texture count, and translucency, while those are still like sticking points here and there, studios are still going to be more comfortable doing pre-rendered things for high-end visuals. But I think once those things get solved, there's almost no reason why waiting for a lighting change to get rendered out to see the change in it is such a waste of time. Whereas in real time, you just move it around and you see it instantly. So I can only see eventually that we're going to go in that direction.
So it's sort of like crossing over from virtual production into sort of like a VR cross production.
That seems to be that's where people are exploring most right now, because that stuff's where it needs to be, or at least it's getting right to where it needs to be. So this is the process here is quite typical for creating maps in games in general at the moment still. I think the only advantage that we had in creating these is that Gears of War has a massive library of things that have already been created. And so there is an element of taking those things and pushing them so that they work in the scene as it exists now, or to what it will come out as on the next gen console or whatever. But mostly it was taking blockouts that have been created by level designers. And then one awesome thing that we got to do at Splash was in the groups of people working on the map, you get to really define what that map was going to look like. I can't remember what the documents were called at this precise moment, but we'd get to make a document and then propose it to the leads and to the coalition leads and say, we want the map to look like this. We think it will look like this. It should look like this because of these things. And then that would drive the visuals of it. The concept would run with that. And then we'd end up with this. So then, you would take the level block out and then clad it in things and then highlight hero assets. So things that we would need to make in-house rather than just do world building. So there were, on every map, there was an opportunity to make stuff. Like in this one, that railway line was a new asset that we had to conceive. Obviously, all of the floor detailing, everything is modeling that needs to be done. But for the most part, I think on these, the assets came from a library and we just kind of up-res them and made them work for the scene as a whole.
And what would you would export the OBJ, bring it into Maya, up-res it, bake it all down, bring it back? Yes,
that's pretty much it. Or you'd kind of like make a new high poly and then bake that to it just to get an extra bit of detail into the geometry. Anything that you could do to push it if it wasn't up to scratch, because some of the assets were coming from like Gears Gone. But I'd say for that happened rarely. Most of the time it was taking assets that were created for the Gears that you were working on, world building the scene and then highlighting those areas where we'd need new things and then working on those, picking your battles really, and just making the scene as good as you can do.
Some of the assets look quite tricky, especially these Art Nouveau kind of stuff. There must have been elements that took a bit of like reworking, retopology.
Yeah. So things like the cladding and stuff that you just pointed out, those things will have been and were drawn by concept art, and then we would use or create existing trim textures and build UV new geometry based on that set that the concept had defined, and then clad the buildings in those. So those things like that would mostly have been new meshes. And
it looks like you had a crack at another Gears of War project up here.
This was in my last days at Splash Damage. We took, so it was me and Josh Grafton, managed to get this through Greenlight and into full production. And then once it got into full production, I just said, I've worked on too many Gears titles now. But it was great fun. Like Gears is amazing. It's got a very solid art style. and it is really fun to work on. It's nice, like chunkifying everything, and it's something that I think as I make things today, still in the art style that I have in like chunkifying things up, adding bolts to stuff, making it a bit rugged. So yeah, I helped get it through green light and into production, which was awesome. And then yeah, the team took it from there.
And it looks like you've been having a crack at some indie stuff lately. Is that right?
Yeah, so I just thought one issue that I have on projects in my spare time. I mean, you can do as many personal scenes as you want, but I've always had kind of the want to try and make a little game or something, just to give it a go. And one issue that I was always running into is that I have no idea how to code. And I also had no idea how to use blueprints, really. So these latest two were kind of an exploration or a foray in learning blueprints so that I could do those things more. And if I had an idea pop into my head, I could try it out and see if it would be fun to play. Because that was my main issue, is I could have an idea and I had no idea if it'd be fun to play. And I'd sit there thinking about how this would be the most awesome game in the world. And I need to get that pitch over to publishers. But who knows, it could be rubbish, right? And I think once you learn how to use blueprints and you can make it a small version of that idea, then you'll never really know.
Yeah. And so you're moving on now, is that correct?
Yes, I am. Yeah, I'm moving on from Axis. Unfortunately, it's a sad one. Fortunately, I suppose I have really loved working here, but yeah, as I said before, sometimes I just feel like I need a change. And I'm going to a new studio, Silver End Games, a small indie studio, to work on a new unannounced title, which will be good fun. I thought it'd be cool to try and get in somewhere early. They're a very new studio. I think only a year old at the moment, and just help out, help shape the art, help bring the art on a brand new project, which is going to be awesome.
Cool. Well, thanks for your time. Really appreciate that.
No worries. It was great speaking to you.
Yeah, you too.